Last Friday morning, ICE executed 3 immigration raids across Los Angeles. These were largely criminals that had already been flagged by the White House as the quote-unquote worst of the worst. They included Jose Cristobal Hernandez Buitron, who was a convicted robber from Peru, Lionel Sanchez Laguna, a convicted child abuser from Mexico, Quan Chan Phan, a convicted murderer from Vietnam. Naturally, because everything Trump does is bad, a bunch of immigration protesters decided to riot. Not outside of local law enforcement, but outside of the federal building of downtown Los Angeles. By Saturday morning, you had rioters stoning police across Los Angeles County, more people coming up, lighting things on fire. So what was the response almost a full 48 hours later? Donald Trump called in the National Guard because you cannot try and destroy a federal building. You cannot be attacking federal law enforcement and be allowed to do so with impunity. And the narrative that is broken out has been Donald Trump is the one escalating this. Christian, I think this story, more than the left is crazy and the left loves rioting, is the fact that the left is willing to incinerate its credibility when it comes to immigration, rather than saving their fire for if the Trump administration actually does go after peaceful DACA recipients or family separations. If you are willing to burn all this ammo to protect convicted murderers and child abusers, why would anyone in the center of the country believe you when you then are going apoplectic over the family separations?
Look, the left has clearly lost the narrative when it comes to the immigration debate in this country. I agree with you 100% on that. But I do disagree with the idea that Donald Trump isn't sort of escalating this thing or intentionally inflaming the people who are on the ground either protesting or rioting, which I do want to draw a strict line in the sand.
Of course.
If you are destroying property, if you are literally calling rideshare apps and then setting the cars on fire as soon as they arrive there.
Or shutting down a freeway.
Yeah, if you're shutting down a freeway and preventing hardworking Americans from going to their jobs.
Let alone ambulances.
Yeah, this is a problem that the left has had. And actually, no, not the left. The right also. Shout out January 6th. But I want to talk about Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom in particular because I think they are the two men at the center of this. Donald Trump, I might disagree with his decision to call in the National Guard rather than urging state officials to, restore law and order, first and foremost. But once you start sending in Marines, that's a very different situation than anything we've seen over the last decade where violent political demonstration has become the norm on any number of issues. The Trump administration has flat out told us one of the, driving forces behind this big shock and awe deportation agenda is to scare people. And especially, again, in a political climate where protesting and eventually rioting has become commonplace in a city like Los Angeles, which has a lengthy history of violent political demonstration. Like, what did you expect to happen, right? This is a natural recourse of what the Trump administration has told us they're going to do. That being said, Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, any number of local California leaders, you are also partially to blame, not because of what the Trump administration is doing right now, but because of the climate you fostered in your state, the disrespect for law enforcement writ large, the very clear declaration that you are sanctuary cities and a sanctuary state, even in the face of growing popular opinion that you are 1,000% wrong on this issue. So the idea that both sides of this are saying, oh, they're evil, they're the ones doing all of this, when in reality, nuanced political discourse in this country is impossible right now for any number of reasons. You look like you had something to say there, so I'm going to let you go.
It's hard for me to both sides this one.
Okay.
For a number of reasons. Let's go back to 2017 when Donald Trump came into office and what he wanted was the wall. And he was willing to codify DACA, make sure that all those dreamers that came here through no fault of their own, they've gone to school, they've had jobs, they've maybe served in U.S. military, giving them legal citizenship, not just like the Obama non-deportation order, in exchange for the wall. How different would the last, 8 years of American politics have been if Nancy Pelosi didn't blow up that deal? Because they were about to do it. Instead, they blocked the wall, Instead, 2020, you had blue states allow riots to run rampant. And then Joe Biden goes into office and decides to overturn everything Trump had done, where we didn't have to do mass deportations when Trump was in office last time because we didn't have, 10 million new illegal aliens, some of whom are violent criminals, right? Not all, not most, but some of whom are violent criminals. And as a result, I think it's why the resistance is so feeble, because all they have is a muscle memory of if Trump targets it, that means it's good, and if Trump likes it, that means it's bad. And then you have Trump come back into office largely on a surge of the majority of Americans approving of his deportation regime, because they understand that there is a massive difference between how things were in 2017 versus how they are in 2025. And so if the response to 40-something illegals with existing criminal records that DHS has already flagged, not someone random that Trump said, oh, show me your papers, and you're held in detention for multiple days, even though you're actually accidentally a citizen. If the response is, we're going to storm a federal building, is the federal government not allowed to do anything about that? And this is the answer that I think why you've had a pretty far right-wing shift in votes, and even among demographics that historically have been much more liberal or moderate. I'm just looking for the counterfactual. What should be done instead of what Trump is doing?
Or any number of politicians. I think we as America need to take a look at the mirror and say, what are we actually doing? Because I can guarantee you the people who are setting cars on fire, the people who are throwing boulders off of the overpass and destroying cars, whether they're civilian or police vehicles on the highway, they're just out there, sowing chaos for the fun of it, right? I don't think that is targeted protest. So whose duty is it? Is it political organizers? Is it the education system? To remind people, yes, this country does have a lengthy history of effective protest, mass protest, and at the local level. But Martin Luther King, they weren't setting buildings or cars on fire. In fact, they were the ones being firebombed.
And they believed in respectability politics, which has become such a dirty term on the left. But then there is the question of, what are you an activist for? Seriously, we aren't talking about DACA recipients. Do you really think the Peruvian convicted robber has a right to be here? And this is just a first principles disagreement. I think no. I think no, he doesn't have a right to be here.